Elena Parker never expected her quiet Seattle home to feel different. Yet the moment her son Ethan walked in for spring break, bringing his college friend Liam Hayes with him, something in the air shifted. She couldn't name it, but she felt it instantly, like a subtle change in temperature. A soft current brushing past her without warning. She had been preparing lunch, thinking only about her usual routine, when she heard Ethan pushing open the front door. His voice was energetic, loud, full of the confidence of a 22-year-old returning home. She felt warm hearing him again. But then came another voice, gentler, polite, carrying a sincerity that made her pause. "Mrs. Parker, it's really good to see you again," Liam said as he stepped inside. Shaking off the rain from his jacket, Elena turned, still holding a dish towel, and found herself looking at a young man who had grown more confident since she last saw him. He wasn't striking in a dramatic way, but he had a calm presence, the kind that made people feel comfortable without trying. Dark hair, thoughtful eyes, a posture that showed manners his parents would have been proud of. But it wasn't his looks that caught her, it was the way he spoke, the kind tone, the respect. It had been a long time since anyone in her home talked to her, like they genuinely meant it. She brushed away the odd flutter in her chest and welcomed them both. The house quickly filled with the familiar energy of college kids' backpacks dropped on the floor. Laughter echoing down the hallway, Ethan talking about classes and projects she barely understood. For a moment, Elena felt young again, simply because the house felt alive. During lunch, Lena noticed how different the two young men were. Ethan talked fast, always distracted, glancing at his phone between bites. Liam listened to others more than he talked. When he complimented her cooking, he didn't say it casually. He looked her in the eyes, appreciating the effort. "This tastes amazing, Mrs. Parker." "Thank you," he said. It was simple, ordinary, but it warmed a place inside her she hadn't felt in a long time. Mark. Her husband came home late from work as usual. He sat down, still half focused on his phone, tired from the endless cycle of meetings. Elena understood him. Life was busy. Responsibilities piled up, but sometimes she wondered if they had forgotten how to look at each other. He barely noticed the guests. Barely noticed her. She served him dinner. He murmured thanks without lifting his eyes. Meanwhile, Liam asked her about her day, her job at the small community office, the book she was reading. Questions Mark once asked years ago. Elena told herself not to think too much about it. Liam was simply polite. That was all. But later that evening, while she washed dishes alone, she replayed the small moments in her mind, the genuine smile, the way he paid attention, the gratitude in his voice. She wasn't attracted to him. She wasn't foolish. She was simply surprised to feel anything new at all. She went to bed that night with a restless feeling she tried to ignore. The next morning, the house woke early. Seattle rain tapped the windows and the smell of coffee drifted through the kitchen. Elena moved quickly, used to taking care of others, used to filling the silence. When the boys came downstairs, Ethan went straight to the fridge, but Liam paused to help her carry plates to the table. He did it naturally, not trying to impress anyone, as if kindness was simply a part of him. "Thank you," she said. "Of course," he replied, offering a warm smile. Again, something fluttered inside her, not desire, not excitement, but a soft recognition. It reminded her of who she once was before life became a checklist of obligations. Throughout the morning, she caught glimpses of the boys talking, laughing, teasing each other. Their energy made the house feel brighter. Yet every so often, she found Liam glancing toward her, not in a strange way, not with inappropriate attention, but with a gentle awareness that made her feel seen. It had been years since anyone looked at her with that much simple respect. When she stepped outside to water small plants on the porch, she didn't expect Liam to follow her, but he did, offering to bring out the recycling bins. They fell into an easy conversation about the weather, Seattle's unpredictable seasons, and the city's best coffee shops. Simple topics, but the conversation flowed effortlessly, as if they had known each other for years. "You have a peaceful home," Liam said, looking around with quiet admiration. Elena smiled. "It doesn't always feel that way. Still," he said softly, "it feels warm, comfortable. I like being here." His words caught her off guard. She hadn't felt someone appreciate her home, her space in a long time. Mark was always working, Ethan was always rushing. And Alina had learned to fill silence on her own. Before she could respond, Ethan appeared at the doorway, asking if they were ready to leave for a movie. Liam gave Alina a small nod, a gesture that somehow felt meaningful, and followed Ethan inside. The rest of the day moved quickly. The house emptied, then filled again. Dinner came and went. Mark worked late again, missing most of the evening. Liam helped set the table, offered to wash dishes, and thanked her again for the food. Alina told herself that he probably treated everyone this kindly. But she couldn't explain why it affected her so deeply. Later, as she collected laundry from Ethan's room, she overheard the two boys talking. Ethan joked that his mom was too organized, and Liam laughed softly, saying, "She's thoughtful. She pays attention." That's rare. Alina froze in the hallway, the basket still in her hands. She wasn't supposed to hear that, and yet hearing it made her eyes sting unexpectedly. Mark never said things like that anymore. Not out of unkindness, just habit, routine. The slow fading of attention that happens when people stop trying. That night, Lena lay in bed while rain whispered against the windows. She listened to the quiet hum of the house and wondered why her heart felt unsettled. It wasn't love. It wasn't desire. It was something far simpler. Far lonelier. The sense of being noticed after years of feeling transparent. She turned off the light and closed her eyes, trying to steady her thoughts. But one truth lingered no matter how she tried to push it away. Something had begun inside her. Small and uninvited, but impossible to ignore. A feeling that made her question the life she had built. A feeling she wished she didn't have. And deep down, she sensed this was only the beginning. The next few days moved quickly, but to Alina, everything felt sharper, more noticeable. Like her senses had quietly awakened without her permission. She tried to stay focused on normal things, cooking, cleaning, work emails, but every small interaction with Liam left a quiet echo in her heart. She didn't want it, she didn't search for it, but it was there. Like a soft light she couldn't ignore, Ethan and Liam settled into a relaxed routine at home. They slept late, ate whatever Alina cooked, and rushed out to meet friends or go to the gym. Alina stayed busy, yet she found herself hyper-aware of their presence. When they walked into the room, when they laughed from down the hallway, and the floor creaked under their steps, she felt everything. It made her feel foolish, like she was suddenly 17 again instead of 45. One morning, she was unloading groceries from the car when Liam walked out to help her. Ethan was still upstairs, and Mark was at work as usual, so it was just the two of them in the driveway. Liam grabbed the heavier bags without being asked. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I want to," he replied easily. "You already do so much." It was a simple answer, but it hit her deeply. She carried responsibilities every single day, yet people rarely acknowledged it. Hearing a young man say it without hesitation made something inside her soften and ache at the same time. Inside the kitchen, he helped her put things away. Their movement felt natural, like they had done this routine for years instead of minutes. Alina tried to keep the conversation light, asking about his classes, his plans after graduation. Liam spoke about business school, a startup idea he had, and the pressure to figure out his future. He sounded thoughtful, even vulnerable. "You're very mature," she said without thinking. He smiled shyly. And she regretted the comment immediately. Not because it was wrong, but because it felt too personal. "Thanks," he murmured. "I just try to be aware, I guess." She didn't ask what he meant, but she felt the meaning anyway. That afternoon, while the boys were out, Mark came home early for once. Alina hoped maybe they could talk or take a quiet moment together, but he was distracted, exhausted, frustrated with work. He talked about deadlines and meetings, barely noticing she had made his favorite lunch. When she told him she missed spending time together, he nodded absently, not really hearing her. She didn't get angry. She was used to being unheard, but for the first time, she felt the weight of it differently. She felt the contrast. Later that evening, Ethan and Liam returned, drenched from the Seattle rain, but laughing like kids who had no worries in the world. Seeing them lifted her mood instantly. Ethan ran upstairs to shower. leaving Liam in the living room shaking water from his sleeves. "You look like you walked through a river," she said. Liam laughed. "It felt like it." Alina handed him a towel without thinking, and their hands brushed. Only for a second. A small, unplanned touch. But it startled her enough that she drew back quickly. Liam didn't react strangely. He simply thanked her and ran the towel through his hair. Alina forced herself to look away. During dinner, she tried to act normal, telling a funny story about a coworker. Ethan laughed, but Liam listened. Not just with polite interest, he listened, like her words mattered. Whenever she spoke, he gave her his full attention. It was small, but small things are sometimes the most dangerous. When dinner was over, Ethan rushed upstairs to FaceTime a classmate. Liam stayed behind to help clean the table. Alina told him she could handle it, but he stayed anyway. "You're really thoughtful," she said. He shrugged. "You do everything around here. It's the least I can do." Alina looked down at the soapy water, unsure how to respond. She wasn't used to feeling appreciated. It felt unfamiliar, like a language she had forgotten. Later that night, Ethan suggested they all watch a movie. Alina agreed, trying to pretend everything was normal. They sat on the couch, Ethan in the middle, Liam on the end. Alina stayed on the far side, keeping the distance she knew she needed. But at one point during the movie, Ethan ran to grab a snack and left the room. Alina felt the silence shift. She wasn't doing anything wrong, but suddenly she was aware of Liam's presence in a way she could no longer deny. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly, noticing her tense expression. "Yes," she replied too quickly. "Just tired." Liam hesitated as if wanting to say something else, but instead gave her a soft nod. When Ethan returned, the moment dissolved. The next afternoon, Alina was sitting on the porch, enjoying the rare break from rain, when Liam stepped outside with a cup of tea he had made for her. He didn't ask if she wanted one. He just handed it to her gently, as though he had known what she needed. "It looked like you needed a warm drink." He said. She took it, surprised. "You didn't have to." "I know," he replied simply. "But it felt right." They sat quietly for a moment, listening to the distant sound of traffic, the wind moving gently through the trees. Then, out of nowhere, Liam asked, "Were you always this calm? You have a peaceful way about you." She laughed softly. "I don't know about peaceful. Life gets noisy." "Maybe," he said, "but you handle it with grace." Alina felt her breath catch. No one had said something meaningful like that to her in years. Not Mark, not friends, not anyone. But before she could respond, Ethan opened the front door and called them inside. The moment broke, but it didn't disappear. It settled into her heart like a quiet, uninvited truth. That evening while cooking dinner, she overheard Ethan teasing Liam about helping her so much. "You're trying too hard, man," Ethan joked. "It's just my mom." Liam didn't laugh. His voice was softer than usual when he answered. "She's not just anything. She's kind. She deserves appreciation." Alina stood frozen behind the kitchen wall, her heartbeat loud in her ears. She knew she shouldn't listen, but she couldn't move. And then Ethan's phone rang, pulling him away. For a long second, the house fell silent. Alina leaned against the wall, her chest rising and falling too fast. She didn't want feelings like this. She didn't ask for this attention. She didn't even fully understand what it was. But it was real, and it was growing faster than she wanted it to. That night, Alina lay awake, staring at the ceiling as the rain returned, tapping softly like distant footsteps. She felt guilty. She felt confused. She felt alive. And worst of all, she knew the lines were starting to blur. Even if neither of them had crossed anything yet, she told herself. It had to stop. But some feelings don't disappear just because we want them to. And Alina sensed that this quiet storm inside her had only just begun. The turning point arrived on a gray Sunday morning when the house felt unusually quiet, the kind of quiet that makes small sounds seem louder. Alina stood at the kitchen sink rinsing dishes, trying to keep her mind steady, when she heard Ethan and Liam talking in the living room. Ethan's voice was playful, teasing like always. Dude, why are you always helping my mom? You're acting like you want to impress someone. Alina smiled a little, expecting Liam to brush it off, but his reply made her freeze. His tone wasn't joking. It was low, honest, slightly hesitant. She deserves to be appreciated. She's special? The word hit her like a soft but sudden shock. Special? She had not heard Mark use that word for her in years, not out of cruelty, but out of habit, routine, distance. Hearing it now from someone so young and unexpected made her chest tighten with a mixture of warmth and fear. Before she could move, Ethan changed the subject and the moment faded, but its impact remained sharp in her mind. Alina set the last dish in the rack and dried her hands shakily, unsure how to process what she had heard. She stepped into the hallway to call the boys for breakfast. And for a brief second, her eyes met Liam's. He looked at her as though he was holding back words. A gentle seriousness in his expression. Alina quickly broke eye contact, though her heart pounded in her chest. The rest of the day moved quickly. But Alina was deeply aware of every shift in the atmosphere. Ethan had plans to meet friends, leaving the house early. Mark was buried in weekend work, barely speaking to full sentences to her. She told herself that was normal, that this weekend was no different from countless others. Yet everything inside her felt different. When Liam walked down the stairs looking for a snack, their paths crossed in the kitchen. She tried to stay casual, offering him fruit or toast, anything to keep her hands busy. Liam leaned against the counter, quiet for a moment before saying, "Did we make things awkward earlier?" He asked the question carefully, like he didn't want to step out of line. Alina shook her head too quickly. "No, nothing is awkward. Everything is fine." But her voice trembled slightly, giving away what she tried to hide. Liam didn't push. He just nodded and helped slice fruit without being asked. The simple closeness between them suddenly filled with unspoken weight. Later that afternoon, the rain finally eased, leaving the yard soaked and the sky pale. Alina stepped outside for fresh air, hoping the cool breeze would settle her thoughts. She stood on the porch, arms crossed, thinking about her marriage, her loneliness, the strange warmth she felt around Liam. She told herself she was just tired, just overwhelmed, and that she would gain clarity with time. But the truth was harder. She was shaken by how seen she felt for the first time in years. Liam joined her outside quietly, hands in his pockets. Not too close, but not far either. "Seattle rain never ends," he said with a small smile. Alina nodded, trying to steady her voice. "It's been raining a lot lately." Silence grew between them, not heavy, but meaningful. Liam glanced at her, studying her expression. "You seem distracted today. Did I do something wrong?" The question was so sincere it made her breath catch. "No," she said softly. "You didn't do anything wrong." He nodded slowly, but his eyes held something deeper: concern, respect, and something she didn't want to name. As the afternoon passed, Ethan returned briefly before heading out again, leaving the house mostly quiet. Mark stayed in his office working on spreadsheets, unaware of the emotional storm unfolding only a few feet away. Alina tried to occupy herself by folding laundry and cleaning counters that didn't need cleaning. But she couldn't stop replaying Liam's earlier words in her mind. She deserves to be appreciated. She's special. The words felt like a forgotten part of herself had suddenly been pulled back into the light. By evening, the sky had darkened again, and the house was filled with the soft hum of appliances and distant traffic. Alina was preparing dinner when she heard footsteps and turned to find Liam standing in the doorway, unsure, almost nervous. "Mrs. Parker," he began, then paused. "Alina," he corrected himself softly, the name leaving his mouth with an emotion she couldn't place. The sound of her own name spoken like that shook something deep inside her. "Earlier, I hope I didn't cross a line." His voice was steady, but she saw uncertainty in his eyes. Alina placed the knife down slowly. "Liam, you haven't done anything wrong. It's me who's—" She stopped herself before finishing the sentence. She didn't know what she was: confused, lonely, awake. Liam stepped closer but kept a respectful distance, careful not to make her uncomfortable. "I admire you," he said simply. "Not in a reckless way. Not in a way that would ever cause trouble. I just see you." That sentence nearly broke her. Not because it was romantic, but because it touched the deepest part of Hertha, part that felt invisible for so long. Alina forced a breath, fighting the tightness in her throat. "Liam, I'm married. And you're my son's friend." She said it gently, not as a rejection, but as a reminder to both of them. Liam nodded immediately. "I know. That's why I would never act on anything. I respect you too much, and I respect Ethan." His voice cracked slightly, and that small break in his tone was enough to make her heart ache. They stood there for a moment, neither moving, both trying to find balance between honesty and restraint. Before Alina could respond, the front door opened and Ethan called out, "Mom." "Liam." The moment shattered instantly, replaced by the clatter of normal life. Liam stepped back quickly, composing himself. Alina wiped her eyes discreetly and forced her voice into steady friendliness as she called out, "We're in the kitchen." Ethan entered in a rush, oblivious to what he had interrupted, asking about dinner and weekend plans without noticing anything unusual. That night, after everyone had gone to their rooms, Alina sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the hallway lights spilling through the doorway. The house was silent, yet her mind felt loud. She wasn't in love with Liam, she knew that. It wasn't romance she craved. It was being noticed, valued, appreciated. And Liam, without meaning to, had awakened something fragile inside her, something painful but honest. She felt guilty, but she also felt alive in a way she hadn't expected. She pressed a hand against her chest, trying to steady her breathing. She knew things had changed. She knew she had to be careful for her marriage, for her son, for Liam's future. But she also knew something else. Feelings, once awakened, do not disappear just because they're inconvenient. As Alina turned off the light, one truth echoed in her mind with quiet certainty. Nothing would ever be the same again. The final day of spring break arrived with a heavy gray sky, the kind that made the whole house feel dim even with the lights on. Alina woke early, already feeling the weight of goodbye pressing on her chest. She moved quietly through the kitchen, making coffee, preparing breakfast, trying to pretend everything was normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. Her heart had been stretched thin over the past few days, caught between guilt, confusion, and a strange, painful clarity. She tried to focus on routine, cracking eggs, slicing fruit, setting plates, but her mind kept drifting to the conversation she and Liam had never finished. She knew it would happen today. It had to. She couldn't let him leave without clearing the air, without putting gentle but firm boundaries around the dangerous feelings that had begun between them. She owed him honesty. She owed herself peace. When Liam came down the stairs, he looked like he hadn't slept much either. He greeted her with a quiet good morning, his voice softer than usual, as if he was carrying the same heavy thoughts she was. Ethan followed moments later, cheerful and oblivious, already talking about their drive back to campus and the assignments he had been ignoring all week. Alina nodded along, listening but not really processing his words. She noticed Liam glancing at her with concern, but she avoided his eyes. Ethan rushed back upstairs to finish packing, leaving the kitchen in a silence that felt too tight, too fragile. Liam stayed behind. He stood near the doorway for a moment, unsure if he should speak, then stepped closer, keeping his tone low. "Alina, are you okay?" The simple question cracked something open inside her. She wiped her hands on a towel, trying to hide the tremor in her fingers. "We need to talk," she whispered, not looking at him. Liam's posture straightened, his expression turning serious. "I know," he said. "I've been waiting for a chance." She finally met his eyes, and the sadness in them made her chest ache. "You didn't do anything wrong," she began. "I need you to know that." Liam swallowed, nodding carefully. "I meant everything I said," he replied. "But I never wanted to make your life harder." Lena took a deep breath. "It's not your fault. I just forgot what it felt like to be noticed." voice quivered, but she didn't hide it. She had spent too many years hiding her feelings, softening her emotions for the sake of keeping peace. She wasn't going to hide right now. Liam stepped forward slightly. Not close enough to cross a line, but close enough to show he was listening. "You deserve to be noticed every day," he said gently. "By the person you love." Those words felt like a blow, not harsh, but painfully honest. Her marriage to Mark was not broken, but it was worn down, quiet, tired. She had accepted years of distance as normal, and now she saw how deeply that distance had shaped her. Alina shook her head slowly. "Even if that's true, she gestured between them carefully. "This can't grow into something else. It can't stay." Liam looked down, breathing deeply, like he had already known this but needed to hear it spoken aloud. "I understand," he whispered. "I do." She stepped closer, not too close, but enough to speak from her heart. "You're a good person, Liam. Kind, mature. You didn't mean to hurt anyone. But you're young and you have an entire life ahead of you. I don't want to be a chapter that makes things messy." He nodded, blinking hard, his jaw tightening as he tried to control the sadness in his expression. "I would never want to disrespect you," he said. "Or Ethan, or your family." Elena's voice softened. "I know. That's what makes this even harder." The sound of footsteps upstairs broke the moment, forcing them both to straighten and step apart. Ethan came bounding down the stairs with a suitcase, talking about traffic and snacks for the trip. He didn't notice the tension in the room, didn't see the way both of them avoided looking at each other. Alina helped him load the car, giving her son a long hug because it was the only honest thing she could do without breaking. When Ethan slid into the passenger seat, Liam came to the porch for his turn to say goodbye. He hesitated first, then stepped forward with that same quiet calm she had come to recognize. "Thank you for everything," he said softly. Alina nodded, her throat tight. "Drive safe, and take care of yourself." They shared a final moment, no words, no wrong intentions. Just two people acknowledging something real and painful and impossible. Liam lifted his arms slightly, asking silently if a hug was okay. Alina gave a small nod. The hug was brief, gentle, respectful. No heat, no risk, only gratitude and a bittersweet ache. Neither of them spoke aloud. When the car pulled away, rain began again, light at first, then steady. As though the sky understood the moment too well, Alina stayed on the porch long after the car disappeared from view. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the cool drizzle touch her skin, grounding her in the present. She felt hollow and full at the same time, empty from letting go, full from understanding something important about herself. She wasn't longing for forbidden love. She wasn't dreaming of a young man who didn't belong in her future. She was mourning her own neglect, her own silence, the years of emotional loneliness she had allowed to grow unchecked. Liam had not been temptation, he had been a mirror, a reminder of who she used to be and who she wanted to become again. As the rain fell harder, Alina whispered into the gray air, "I have to fix my life, not escape it." She knew the next steps wouldn't be easy. She needed to talk to Mark, not to accuse him, not to blame him, but to share the truth about her loneliness. She needed to rekindle the parts of her marriage that still mattered, to be honest with herself about what she wanted. And she needed to build boundaries strong enough that no unexpected kindness could shake her heart. The way these past days had, she stepped inside the house and closed the door gently behind her, letting the warmth wrap around her. The home felt different now, because Liam had left, but because she had finally woken up to the life she wanted to repair. She walked slowly to the kitchen, touched the counter, breathed deeply, and felt something inside her settle. She wasn't broken. She wasn't bad. She was human, yearning for connection, deserving of love. And now she knew where to start again that evening. As the rain softened and the quiet filled the house once more, Alina realized something important. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go of what feels good in the moment, so you can protect what matters in the long run. And as she stood by the window, watching the streetlights glow through the mist, she whispered a final quiet truth to herself. Letting go wasn't weakness. It was strength. and she was finally ready to move forward.